Virtus.pro is a very dangerous team. Dangerous to themselves, dangerous to the opponent, because even they don't know which Virtus.pro is going to turn up on any day. And so this is a lineup that has had the same 5 players for longer than any other team in CSGO. And yet, they are still a team that are a dark horse to win this tournament. And the reason why is because even when they've hit slumps, even when they've hit lows in the past, like they're currently in at the moment, they found a way back out of it. I mean, there's a famous line that they said in an interview once where they said, we don't change players, we change roles. And that really has been the dynamic within Virtus.pro for the last few years, which is once a star player suddenly isn't as good at his role or he's not having the same kind of impact, they figure out who can be the star player now. And then if this player is going to become the star player, who shifts around and becomes more of a supportive role. And with certain players who've been stars once upon a time, Neo and Taz were some of the best 1.6 players, and players who at times were the best players in CSGO, Pasha, they've had to kind of take an ego hit. They've had to sacrifice to the team and realize, I'm not going to be the star if Virtus.pro is going to win. And managing those tricky relationships, I think that's one of the reasons why they've been able to keep that 5-man lineup together for so long, because they've managed to get that internal respect where they know it's about winning. It's about something bigger than just an individual player feeling like he's the star or he gets everything done his way. And so the big problem Virtus.pro faces is that at the moment, even they're living off the storyline. Like they want to say, well, we always find a way to come back. You know, when it's the big game, we always turn up again. But it's never been as bad as this. Like in the past when they had slumps, it was mainly online tournaments, or it was the odd offline tournament. They're looking at a solid, we're talking like 4 or 5 months since they were actually relevant as a team that could win a big tournament. And now they're trying to win the biggest. So if they can do it this time, yeah, it just adds to the storybook element. You take that amazing storyline of every year managing to come back, win big tournaments, but you have to add in then, arguably the biggest of their whole careers. So they won a major, 3 years ago. Yeah, they were very, very good back then. Since then, they've always been the team who, they're kind of the gatekeepers to who's going to be number one. You meet them in the semifinals, you meet them in the final. And if you really are the best team in the world, you can beat them. You can play top level Counter-Strike and maybe you can edge them out because their specialty is always to kind of have a never say die attitude, to always battle to the very end. And in the big matches, because of that experience, because of that confidence, because they've got the level of chemistry few teams will ever experience, they're always able to find a way to keep hanging in the game and make it close. But most of the best teams of all time did get that major championship, did get the big title by overcoming Virtus.pro. So if they can win this time, to me, this would be the most surprising title of their careers. This would be the one where it really did seem like this is the end of the story for this 5-man lineup. Finally, we're going to see who they're going to change, how are they going to reinvent themselves. So if they can reinvent themselves as just the same 5 players again, but find some working combination and win a second major, but we're talking about they won the second major entirely, and now they're going to win number 2 as the 11th major. That would be almost unthinkable. But then again, Virtus.pro is kind of an unthinkable team. So when they're at their peak, and this still happens every year, one of the reasons why people don't want to play them is not just they're veterans, not just they've had so many battles, so many great teams they've played against, they always match up against pretty much every good team. But the most scary aspect is every now and then, a different Virtus.pro appears. They bottle the lightning and suddenly they are unstoppable. This is the Virtus plow everyone talks about. And when it gets rolling, when everything's working, suddenly every confidence play, every push for information, every 1v1, everything's winnable. And I think it's not just the ability level of the players. They have some very good players. But I feel as though the opponents know kind of like that plow mode exists and there's an aura around them as a result. And people are always wondering, like, oh, they're running up a few rounds now. They've won a big, like a back-breaking round now. Is this the plow? Is that what's happening? And it's whether you can withstand that. And there's very few teams in the history of the game ever have withstood the Virtus plow and come out on the other side and won the series. So Virtus.pro themselves are always wondering, can we get into that mode? Can everything just switch on? Their opponent's wondering it as well. And that's always in the background of every Virtus.pro match. So probably the most confusing and yet compelling player in Virtus.pro would be Pasha, because this is a player where he was actually a lot later to join the core of the team with Neo and Taz. They'd already played many years. They'd already won many world championships without him. And so when he came in, he was the new guy. And he was the guy who, when they brought him in the team, even though they were the established veteran players, they even said we had to adapt to him. We had to learn, how does he play? How's he going to be comfortable? And that's how they brought the best out of him. And that's how they were able to win some majors at the end of 1.6 with him. So coming into CSGO, this wasn't a problem. Once they got this 5-man lineup together, Pasha actually was the best player in the team. He was this aggressive AWPer. He was a guy who had no fear in his game whatsoever. He didn't have the craziest aim, but he could assert himself on a match. And he was a very kind of bullish player. He was someone who could overpower the opponent, and it was very much a feel player, an intuition player. So I feel like one of the struggles he's had as a player is not only last year did he have an individual dip in form, he really had a slump individually and it seemed like he lost some of his identity. But in rediscovering his identity, he had to change who he was as a player. It wasn't about going back to the old style of player. He doesn't AWP all the time now. Now he's more of a rifler. He isn't the star player of the team now. Now people look to Snacks, for example. Now people look for the more supportive angles to someone like Neo. So I feel like Pasha's a player who, he's very crucial to Virtus.pro being very good, because to me, the kind of his style of play is Virtus.pro's style of play to me. It is that aggressive style of play. You play off feel a lot. If things are working very well, if you're hot, then you can go for those plays that just come off the top of your head and weren't planned in advance. You've got skill, maybe not the most skill in the game, but it's effective in the match. And opponents know that when you're on your game, then they have to feed, they have to respect you. But the best player in Virtus.pro is Snacks. And this is a player who pretty much stands as one of those complete players in the game. I mean, we thought he was one of the best riflers of all time, one of the best clutch players, fantastic playmaker, very good game sense, feel for the game. And then last year, he just added in AWPing. Suddenly he can snipe. He was actually going up head to head with some of the best players in the world, overcoming them. So the key thing you talk about when you talk about Snacks is this concept of impact player. This is a guy where it's not that he has to get the most kills in the server. It's that he's the guy where the kills he gets, only he can really get those kills. He can put himself in situations that are tricky to even navigate your way into, but then he can make these crazy escapes out of those situations, get multiple kills, get in behind opponents, really mess up the opponent's rhythm. And you see when people play against Snacks, they themselves are waiting for the play. They're waiting for something clever to happen, something tricky, something unexpected. And that in itself creates almost this atmosphere of chaos from which he can then execute a play like that. And his eerie, uncanny timing of when to make these plays is really what's conjured a lot of the most famous moments in Virtus.pro history. I mean, one of the original moments that really introduced us to Snacks in this sense was when he was in the final of the major they won, EMS won Katowice in March of 2014, where they were playing NIP, the best team of all time in CSGO to that point in time, a very, very dominant team. And on Mirage, there's this classic round where he manages to sneak up the stairs from the underpass, and he lets one opponent go past him, and it just so happens the opponent's point of view doesn't catch him in the corner. He lets that guy go past, he lets the others come out, and as a result, he's able to create this ridiculous multi-kill situation where a normal player wouldn't even put themselves in that position. If they were, they get one kill, maybe they get traded out, but he's able to create multiple kills to really kind of shake NIP to its core, so it can't have these aggressive pushes. They always have to be wondering where he is. And really, that's the feeling that's gone on with Virtus.pro ever since then. So even if Pasha kind of embodies the style of Virtus.pro, I feel like that fear level, that unpredictability, that you never know what they're going to do, but they could come up with magic, that comes from Snacks. And so he's been so crucial to their victories as the best player for the last couple of years in this lineup. So when we talk about this style of Virtus.pro, this philosophy for the game, which is that we don't change the player, we change the role of the player who typifies that the most has to be Neo. Because if you want to talk about Counter-Strike 1.6, you talk about a superstar player, you talk about the best player of all time, someone who had the complete game. He could AWP, he could rifle, he had fantastic pistols, he was good under pressure, he could switch up the position he went to, he was seemingly good on every map. You're talking about someone where everything in the game seemingly came to him easy. But the key element to who the superstar 1.6 player is, and the world famous support player in CSGO, and how someone could make a transition from such a drastic swap of roles from superstar to the guy setting up the superstars, is you have to understand it didn't come easy to Neo. He's a very talented player, and he's a player who had a high skill level, but he's someone who worked all the time, a very studious player, a very dedicated player. He's someone who tried to refine his game, who would look back over his own matches and his opponents, try and find out where were the weaknesses there, what could I have changed to improve what I was doing. And so it's that kind of dedication to improve and to polish and to kind of refine the more nuanced elements, the fundamentals of the game, that I think have stood him in good stead and made him in CSGO one of the best support players we've had. Because this is a guy who can be the guy who's just throwing a flash, who's throwing a smoke for someone, but he can have incredible impact from that because he is famous for knowing seemingly every smoke in the game, every flashbang. He's the guy who's going in by himself, practicing new angles, practicing new throws. He's trying to figure out, how do I set up a superstar like I used to be in someone like a Snacks or a Pasha? How do I set them up so that the game's easier for them, so that they can create even more havoc, have even more impact on the match? And seemingly all I did is set them up initially, or all I did is get a kill late in the round. All I did is follow someone up on a kill. But in doing so, he's making the whole team run. He's the glue guy in the sense that he puts the pieces together and he keeps them together when it's working. And he's someone where at times he has to be the in-game leader. He has to be the support player and the in-game leader. He's someone where you see that experience. It doesn't come out in terms of he used to be the most skilled player, so now he can just kill everyone. But now he can outwit opponents. He can use that experience to his benefit, where you put him under pressure, you put him in a difficult situation where a newer player might be more skilled, but they don't always know what to do. And it's not that he'll always know the perfect solution, but he's going to have a solution and he's going to come up with it very quickly. He's going to execute it. And that will always give him and his team chances to win matches, to win rounds, to win games.